Are we ready? Are we not having student reps today? Okay. Okay, good. All right, so we probably should just, all right. All right, good evening, everyone. Let me tap my. Thank you all for coming to the Rapid City Area Schools Regular Board of Education. Thank those of you that are here, those of you that are watching live, and those of you that will be watching in the future. At this time, we'll have roll call
Troy Carr,
here.
Jamie Clapham. Here. Christine Stephenson is absent with notice. Donna Moore. Here. Michael Berkland.
Here.
Walt Swan.
Here.
And Katie Urban. Here.
All right, I invite everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I think it in one sense, it doesn't matter, but just because of my awkwardness, we need to take off the item 7, student representatives, because technically it shouldn't be on the agenda. So we appreciate the notification that they're off break, but just to be clear, we'll take it off. Any other adjustments to the agenda before? All right, I'll entertain a motion to accept the proposed agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Motion carries. This time, we're sharing the success. Dr. Strasser.
Good evening, board. And tonight for our sharing the success, we have our Stevens High School speech and debate team. So I'm going to ask them, I don't know if you can pick them out in here, but I'm going to ask them to come forward. If you guys would kind of join me up in this area. Coaches come along as well. All right, the Stevens High School speech and debate team began the year on interesting footing. They had new coaches, a late start to the season, along with the challenges with any sport and activity. The team was fortunate to have a small core of 4 seniors and 1 junior as returning team members. The team grew together with some added underclassmen. The team traveled across the state and all over the Black Hills region, attending 14 tournaments and hosting the Stevens Raider Penguin Classic for the first time in 3 years. The team won many individual team awards. They have 11 members that will be representing Stevens, RCAS, and the state of South Dakota at the National Speech and Debate Association National Tournament in Des Moines, Iowa, and that is June 15th to the 20th. So I want to give a congratulations to our speech and debate team, and I'm going to ask, okay, there we go. You can
handle the names.
There you go.
Thank you. My name is Ryan Harris. I'm the head coach. Sean Bradley, my assistant coach. Charlotte, also one of our assistant coaches. And yes, I can never pronounce it correctly, so I didn't even want to attempt. And then our 4th coach is not here this evening. That's Mr. Sean Binder. I need to take my glasses off here. I'm going to introduce all of our team members, and then the ones who are here will step forward and introduce yourselves, please. For seniors, we have Olivia Berger. And Olivia will be attending Yale next year, so we're thrilled for her on that. Blixer Broussard, who is not here, and Blixer learned 2 weeks ago he was accepted to Harvard, so we're thrilled to death for him as well. Ben Johnson, who couldn't make it this evening. Ioana Matui. Ioana actually got accepted to University of Michigan, go blue. So we're really excited for her. I'm a Wolverines fan, so a little extra on that. And Dylan Tipton, and Dylan will be attending Columbia next year. So we're all very proud of their accomplishments. Also not with us tonight, Emerson Buckles is a junior. Junior Asher, yeah, I was gonna say, I spelled it wrong, Homa. That was my fault. Rhett Miller, who was also not here this evening. Mason Schumacher couldn't be with us with family in Saco Tenant. Sophomores, Haley Keeper is here. And then Spencer Harris, my son, is not here as well. He's visiting family. Desiree Rodriguez, who's not with us this evening. For freshmen, we have Jane Alberson. There's Jane. James Birch, Alexandria Burdick, Linnea Gupka, who's not here. Miles Lee, who's not joining us this evening. Hendrix Jones, there we go. And Hoyt Lighty. Our nationals team, a part of them are here. Dylan is representing us. He earned the right to go to nationals in Congress. So he will be down there competing in the National Congress. We're very excited for that. Olivia, which she's been qualified for 2 years to go. So we're thrilled to be four. See, I'm a new guy, so 4, but we're thrilled for her as well. We've got Alex, who is going to be going in, will be doing World School. And she's was the first freshman to join that team with our juniors who are not here this evening. Jane will be joining her. James right here and Hendrix are going to be doing last chance debate coming up, where they get one last opportunity to compete nationally to try to earn a spot. So we're hoping that they do it. We've got fingers crossed, they're hard workers. And then we've got Hoyt over there as well, who's joining us down in nationals on the World Schools. Who did I miss? Oh, and Haley, excuse me. I'm sorry, Haley. I couldn't see you around Alex. And she will be joining us for World Schools as well. So it was a great season. We appreciate you guys having the opportunity to have us here.
We're just gonna step maybe a little forward. Bobby's gonna get a picture of us.
Yeah, we'd love to have our parents in here. Mr. Karn, you join us, please? You're good. See, that, we even got it, that would be great. Come on, Mr. Karn. Yeah? All right.
How are you? There you go.
Thank you. Right. Before you all disperse, just hold tight.
Yep,
Come on
I
back.
have questions for you, so.
We want to say something to you. All right, Mrs. Urban.
Well, congratulations. And I just want to say that the most high-performing, successful adults that I know were all in debate. And my day job is, I work for the Pennington County State's Attorney's Office, and I don't know a single attorney in that office that wasn't in debate. So, yeah, it sounds like you guys are obviously getting, or you know it's going to have this great outcome with some of these schools that you guys are getting into. So congratulations.
Mrs. Clapham.
Just adding congratulations. It's a huge life skill, and we all know in our society how to have civil discourse, how to understand the other side. And you guys are going to be the people that carry that torch. And we're truly appreciative of seeing it in our students. And we hope you can teach us, your parents, society in general, how to do this and how to do this well. Probably not as well as you guys do it, but how to do this well. So we are extremely proud of you and congratulations.
All right, let's give them another hand. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, at this time, we'll have open forum. We have one request, and that's Mrs. Thompson.
Good evening, Board. My name is Florence Thompson. I'm president of South Dakota Parents Involved in Education. I'm also a retired school psychologist with over 40 years' experience in the schools as a psychologist. My topic tonight is the president's request for DEI information from the schools. Superintendents were to certify K-12 schools have ended illegal diversity, equity, and inclusion practices that advantaged one's race over another. And this was, I think, at one point to be done by April 14th. And I just wondered what the Rapid City Schools response was. Has that been published? Is it going to be published? Where can this information be found? So that's my question for tonight. Thank you.
All right, board response to open forum. I will just say, I don't know, I haven't heard of that requirement, Florence, so I don't know. Well, I'm just saying that I haven't heard of that, that requirement, so, yeah. All right, anybody else? All right. Acting Superintendent Report, Dr. Strasser.
Good evening again, board. Just a couple things tonight. As you know, later on, you'll hear from Mike Rohr, the Children's Home Society Director, and just excited that he's here to share some updates from his perspective on our work with them. Hopefully you had a chance to see the new website that we've been leading up to, and it's actually live. I shouldn't say actually live, but it just feels like it's been a long time coming. So it's there. Super excited for that. Back in January, the TLI department applied for a crosswalk with regarding teacher evaluation, student learning objectives, and that crosswalk was approved. So we're pretty excited because I don't think anybody else in the state has really done that we're aware of. And now we need to kind of figure out what that's going to look like in practice. So some things for us to look forward to, but glad that we have some opportunity to improve our work around student learning objectives and teacher evaluation. This week, I'm attending the Student Education Destination High Performance Virtual Conference. So they do portions of today, tomorrow, and Thursday. And basically, they go through different topics, things you've heard me say before, short action cycles, daily huddles. That might be a little bit newer concept that we're hoping to dive into a little bit more. But basically, just reinforcing and hearing from other high-performing schools and superintendents on their work around organizational excellence. So today was a good day in hearing. And the nice thing is, it's not just some random person from California. We have people from South Dakota who are part of this and doing similar work that we are. So I always like to see that. I know we are looking at the changes regarding the voluntary resolution agreement with the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights and the changes that they've made recently. So over the past year, since we're a part of the resolution, I believe we started in April of last year, so it's been about a year. I will say our district has made meaningful progress towards strengthening our systems and our supports for our students. We have taken a lot of steps on how we track and respond to student data. We've revised some policies and procedures. We've clarified and updated how we look at truancy and some of our behavior procedures. And we've restructured our approach to school safety through renewed partnerships with local law enforcement. So we've engaged in a lot of reflection, collaboration with various stakeholders, and ultimately our goal is how do we create a more responsive, a more student-centered educational environment. The accomplishments that we've made to date, I think really fit our commitment to continuous improvement, and that's work that we want to continue regardless of whether we have a formal agreement or not. We know that the federal landscape has shifted, and that's pushed us in certain ways. But we are committed to staying in compliance with federal laws. But at the same time, we also want to uphold our mission as a school district, and that's to serve every student with fairness, respect, and consistency. So the values embedded within our strategic plan and outlined in our student pillar really remain at the heart of what we do. And that student pillar, as you all know, is about welcoming and acknowledging all students for their value as an individual in a safe environment where they're educated and prepared with skills to be successful in life. We believe that fostering a positive school climate, it's not really about politics and it's not really about policy. It's about making sure every kid feels seen, feels heard, and feels supported in our district. So we've received and we're reviewing a lot of the information that's come over this past year, including the stakeholder equity report. That report will help inform our next steps, and I believe we are committed to engaging with our community as we move forward. So I want to be clear, we're not stepping away from the progress that we've made, and we want to also ensure that any actions we take are aligned with current legal expectations and guidance from federal authorities. So as acting superintendent, it is my responsibility to navigate all the developments that we've gone through in this past year, and in doing so, to keep students at the center of every decision. So we know that this moment requires clarity, it requires collaboration and thoughtful leadership, and I'm very confident that as a school district, we will continue to move forward with purpose and integrity. So building off of a lot of what I talked about at our future board meetings coming up in May, I'll be bringing forward a lot of the work that's been completed. I know that's a big question, so we're going to bring that forward. We're going to bring forward our processes and procedures that we know need to stay in place, because that's good work. And we know, and we want to do policy adoption, bring forward policy adoption that's been developed. So those are some of the key things that we really want to share with the board and our community. And we intend to do that as we get into our next few board meetings. And that is my report. Respond to any questions you have.
Any questions? All right, seeing none. Oh, Mr. Swan.
Thank you, President Carr. This has been a very interesting 2 weeks for me. It really has, as a board member. And it's been, I don't know where to go with a lot of these feelings. I don't know where to go with a lot of this stuff, because it just seems like I'm running into brick walls from every place that I kind of turn to. The Native community is wondering, it's in disarray of whether we're going to be safe without this. And, you know, and I talked to Bobby. I know this story's been picked up by national news outlets, and I've been called by everybody. I'm just, you know, I want to make sure that our message is clear and consistent. That we are doing the best for our students, and that we are creating this. And the one thing that I've been adamant about is that this isn't our decision. This was not a board decision, nor was this an administrative decision. This was a decision that was made from the federal level. And that's one of the things that I would like to stress most, because I can't say it enough. It's just one of those things where I've been one of those things. It's been like, what, 2010 since it started. And it's been a long process, 15 years of something, and then it just kind of gets yanked out from underneath you. It's not a very good, not a very hopeful sign. And not a very, so I'm depending on the good people and the good educators that we have here in the Rapid City Area School District to do the things that they normally do. And that's a great job of including all of our kids. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, Dr. Strasser, thank you very much for that great report. This time, Mr. Sassy.
Thank you, President Carr. I wanted to take an opportunity tonight, given that the negotiated agreements are on the agenda, to give the board a recap around how that process folded out. If I can figure out how there we go. So we talked about the idea that there is no other single greater influence on the district's financial position than negotiations. 85 to 90% of total expenditures are wrapped up in compensation. So this is a very important process, and what happens throughout those conversations has a major influence on the district's overall financial health. And so we take negotiations very seriously. We do a lot of preparation for them. As you're well aware, the district engages in what's called interest-based bargaining, which is more of a collaborative bargaining process, really revolves around trying to find shared interests and develop solutions for those interests as a group. Much like last year, I would say the shared interests really revolved around two areas, and that was recruitment and retention. We made some great progress last year, moved forward quite a lot in terms of both starting wages as well as wages for current employees, but still have a lot of opportunity around that. And so really recruitment, the ability to pull qualified and quality candidates into positions, and retention in terms of holding on to those folks, increasing wages for our current employees, were really the two shared interests, again, between the groups. So the outcome, I think it's always a win when we can say this. We increase starting wages for all new employees. So there isn't one position that someone will start in next year that they weren't on a higher wage than they did this year. And we increased wages for all current employees in the district. Everybody received a raise. And so I think obviously we oftentimes face some really difficult financial situations. So anytime we can say that those two things happen as an outcome of negotiations, it's generally a win. Obviously, every year we have different influencing factors, things that are influencing the budget as we move into that next year that ultimately shape what those conversations look like and what the outcome of negotiations are. And so a couple in particular this year, I would say as we're moving into next year, we're thinking about next year's budget, we're facing some unfavorable budget conditions. Again, we had an enrollment decline year over year. Enrollment is really what drives the financial machine of the district. So having an enrollment decline is never a favorable budget condition. Minimal inflationary increase to the state aid formula, again, 1.25% increase to the target teacher salary of the state aid formula is what ended up coming out of legislation. I've asked many groups at this point the question, have any of you experienced a 1.25% inflationary increase over the last year? And I've yet to have anyone in a group say, yeah, no, I have. So again, just a minimal amount in no way keeps up with the actual inflationary pressure that the district is facing. And then, of course, a lot of uncertainty happening at both the state and federal level. State legislature, as we have discussed, was a little wild this year in terms of what it looked like for public schools. In a lot of moving pieces at the federal level. Uncertainty is always difficult to deal with, especially when you're trying to shape a budget that will impact not only the next year, but years into the future. So difficult budget conditions. One item in particular that also shaped these conversations this year were some of the major differences in fund conditions. So the general fund and the special education fund are the major personnel funds. Between those two funds, 95% of district employees are paid through one of those two funds. And those funds, as we discussed leading into negotiations, are in very different financial positions, literal polar opposite positions. And so we try to be very open with groups about the idea that because of this, because of the funds being in very different positions, that we were going to have differentiated allocations. And so your group could be more or less impacted by this depending on what the funding breakdown of your group is. And you'll see some examples of that here in a minute. But of course, that always changes the conversation. And I think this year we had to really push into the idea that we had to acknowledge the difficulty of recruiting and retaining those special education positions. So those were a couple of the major influencing factors as we moved into these conversations. We've talked about this a lot. In my opinion, one of the things that we've implemented in my time here that I think has gone very well is coming into negotiations and being very open and transparent about the amount of resources that we have to work with. So that there is no jockeying back and forth. There's no horse trading on trying to start here and get them here. It's very transparent. Here's what we're working with. Now let's talk about the best way to utilize these funds. And so we call that developing allotments. And so here are the allotments that we went into the conversations with. And again, the allotment is just the total amount of resources by group. How that is broken down then is really the conversation that happens during the negotiation process. You'll see here on the admin tech side, we had a 3% allotment, classified side, a 3% allotment. Really the teacher group and the paraeducator group are the groups that were most impacted because they have a much higher degree of personnel that are also funded out of SPED. So as we discuss that leading into negotiations, discussions with Director Comer, discussions with Dr. Strasser, we determined that that fund could support a 9% increase on the teacher side and the paraeducator side. Actually, you'll see here in a moment, on the teacher side, we ended up treating that as a straight dollar amount as opposed to a percentage amount. But as you reverse engineer it and break it down, it's about on average a 9% increase, given where the average salary was at for that group. Again, paraeducators, same allocation. General ed funded paras, 3% increase, or excuse me, allocation. SPED, 9% allocation. So overall, between all those allocations, about $4 million will be now in the pockets of our current employees as we move into next year. So again, I think that really shows the number of resources that the district is pushing into its current employees. Here's a little deeper look at how that broke down by group. Again, as we push into the negotiations conversations, the district is bringing interest to the table. Those groups are bringing interest to the table, trying to find common ground, common solutions. So how that money is actually spent typically looks a little different, although you'll see in most groups it looked fairly similar this year. On the teacher side, the wage increases for generally funded teachers, 2.11%. SPED funded personnel was a straight $5,000 increase per teacher. So again, as opposed to using a percentage, we determined that a straight dollar amount would be the best way to go. Placement grids, because there's a dual portion concern of this, both on how we're compensating current employees and how we're attracting new employees to our system. And so we also talk in those groups about how we address placement grids, or the grids that determine what the wage situation is going to look like for incoming employees. So from the placement grid side, generally funded positions, placement grids will increase by 1.25%. And SPED, again, straight $5,000 amount. So every one of those starting wages will increase by $5,000. And you'll see an example of that here in just a minute. Some of the other areas we discussed, we increased the signing bonus for SPED positions and hard to fill positions that are also generally funded, and added and adjusted several extracurricular positions. On the classified side, that group determined to just move forward with a straight across the board 3% increase. So all staff got a 3% increase. You'll see the asterisk there. I'll talk about that in 1 minute. Again, looking at placement grids, on the general fund side, 2% increase to all placement grids, with the exception of bus drivers. So we're still struggling on the bus driver side, recruiting and retaining. We determined that we wanted to move those a little differently. So assigned bus drivers placement grid moved up to $20, unassigned driver to $20.55. And then other, I'm going to butcher the acronym for this, so I'm not going to attempt it, but the UMA UDA stipend, which is essentially those personnel who go through the certification to assist nurses in dispersing medication and generally assisting nurses, that we make sure we recognize those folks and that they're getting a stipend for that work. Admin Tech also determined that 3% across the board increase was the best way to go. We also increased the placement grids for Admin Tech by 3%. We addressed in other some of the intergroup transfer wage increase issues. So one of the issues that group had was folks who were transferring from position to position within that group often would not see a compensation increase. And so we made some changes to make sure that got addressed. And then on the paraeducator side, again, straight across the board increases, 3% for generally funded paras, 9% for special education paras. Same thing with the placement grids, moved all those by 3% and 9% respectively. We also addressed the UMA, UDA stipends in that group, and then addressed a sick leave payout that will now allow paras who are moving over a specific amount of sick leave to be paid for that amount that they're over in the agreement. So just a little bit of deeper information here on the teacher side, the RCEA group. So 25-26 starting salaries will move to 45,563. These would be, again, the generally funded teacher positions. That's from 45,000, so a 1.25% increase. Starting dean, counselor, and social workers moving to 50,563 from 50,000, about a 1.13% increase. And then starting special services teacher salary moving to 51,500 from 46,500, which is about a 10.7% increase. Trying to look into the future a bit at some of the average teacher compensation data. This is a little tough because we're working with estimates of estimates now. Fiscal year 25, the current fiscal year, based on what happened with negotiations last year, the estimated increase was about 6%, bringing total, average compensation to 77,166. This is going to be a more difficult number as we move into 26 to get our hands around because we did that differentiation, which makes it a little more difficult to calculate. I'm assuming that after the SPED increases, the general fund increases, and then the increase around insurance, we're probably going to land again somewhere in that 5 to 6% range, which would then take average compensation up to just over 81,000. If we look at the time period from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 26, so that 6-year time period, the increase in average compensation for our teachers has been 25%. So we've made some good progress. Again, not perfect, need to keep addressing that, but I think it's worth acknowledging that there's been good progress made around that area. I'm not going to dive deeply into this. These are the actual placement grids for that group. So everything I just talked about is in here. On the classified side, again, all employees will receive at least a 3% increase. We're still struggling with R&R. That's not rest and relaxation, recruitment and retention for bus drivers, although I'm sure they love more rest and relaxation. So again, we address them differently. I also want to note that did not come out of that group's allocation. That was determined that the district would eat that cost to, again, try and address that wage and move it up to the $20 an hour mark. So again, assigned drivers, $20 per hour starting wage from 1885, which is a 6.1% increase, and unassigned 2055 from 1938. Again, it's about a 6% increase. So in that group, that's a 23% increase over the last 2 years for bus drivers. So again, really trying to address that situation in every way we can and push resources to that group. And then increase the remainder of the placement grid by 2% for all positions. And again, here's what that looks like. Everything moved 2%, again, outside of drivers and unassigned drivers moving at about 6%. Admin tech, not a ton to talk about here. Again, increased starting salary for all positions by 3%. All existing employees receive a 3% wage increase. Here's what their new placement grid will look like. And then lastly, paraeducators. So again, previous negotiating cycle, I felt like we did some good work. That group saw wage increases from 4% all the way up to 24%. I think we can certainly say it did help. It reduced positions, open positions, but still a lot of room for opportunity there. That group is funded primarily by special education. About 82% of paras are funded through special education. So again, this will go a long ways. The differentiated allocation will go a long ways to helping address that situation again. Substantial starting hourly wage increases, again, 9% for those paras that are SPED funded, 3% for paras that are general ed funded. Substantial hourly wage increases to existing employees on that 9% and 3%. So really trying to, again, address issues around recruitment and retention. Here's what their placement grids will look like. We actually split them into two different grids. One side being the general education positions, starting wage. So if you were a brand new para coming in with 0 years of experience, you'd start at $16.48. And then the SPED para educator positions with a starting wage of $17.99. So pushing that group to the best of our ability as well. We also addressed some things around the contract terms. So currently we have all groups that are staggered in terms of having a year in which they will have a full negotiating cycle, and then a year in which they have sort of an abbreviated negotiating cycle where we address compensation, and then each group can bring one other issue. However, we have, as of now, all groups on that same cycle. So either all groups have full negotiating cycles or all groups have compensation plus one. The groups agreed to stagger that. So in any given year, we'll have two groups in a full negotiating cycle and then two groups in a compensation plus one cycle. So it'll help to break up that really heavy lift on the year that all four groups have fully open negotiations. So again, really trying to focus on making the process more efficient, more effective, and ultimately flowing more resources into our employees' pockets and spending less time in negotiations. Very quickly addressing the insurance situation, because this comes up every year. Even though insurance is considered a benefit and technically would qualify for negotiations, the district has not engaged in negotiating premium contributions. Instead, what we focused on is really trying to keep the benchmark breakdown of contributions. And I think that in my opinion, from the perspective of being in multiple districts, that's been a much more effective way to manage our benefit plan and ultimately to get our employees the best benefits possible. So what we try to do is keep the breakdown contribution at 67-33, meaning that the district covers 67% of the premiums and employee covers 33. So we have not received our preliminary rate estimates. We'll get those here in the next month or so. But for example, if there was a 6% increase in premiums over the course of a year, the district would take 4.2% of that, and the groups would take the remaining 2.8. Just to give you an idea of what that would look like, if we estimated out a 6% increase, that costs the district an additional approximately $300,000. So there's a significant expense to providing that benchmark and trying to stay on that benchmark. But again, in my opinion, a much more effective way to handle that and make sure we're delivering the best benefit to our employees that we can. Lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about budget status. So again, negotiations has the single greatest impact on the district's budget. Budget conditions not super favorable as we move into next year. However, we talked about this with all groups. The Board of Education continues to make employee compensation a priority. All groups received a minimum of a 3% allocation. I think it's really important to acknowledge the idea that that's more than double the inflationary increase to the state aid formula of 1.25%. We talked with each group, and we've talked in these meetings openly about the idea that these increases will push the general fund into a deficit. However, the Board of Education is willing to strategically and responsibly enter a deficit to continue to meaningfully increase compensation. Ultimately, that the idea that recruitment and retention of high-quality employees is the most important thing the district can do to give our students the best educational experience possible is a major priority. And so, again, I think we have to reflect on the idea that ultimately $4 million additional dollars will be flowing into the pockets of our employees as we move into next year. And again, I think given the budget conditions that the district is facing, that's a major win for everyone. And with that, I will take any questions that the board has.
Ms. Clapham?
Not much of a question, mostly just to say, I just wanted to thank everybody that was involved in negotiations. When people who aren't in the room can't really fathom what a heavy lift and a lot of work and effort and time goes into that, from the staff that's in the room, our finance, HR. It's a lot of work, and the collaboration that goes into it. And these board members gave up a lot of their time for 2, 3, 4 hour meetings for a month. So I'm just really appreciative of what everybody did to make this happen and to make positive things happen for our staff. A question I imagine may come from the public, so I just want to, so when we go into a budget deficit, then do we, as a board, discuss how that deficit is then addressed next year?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So that'll be something that over the next 2 months, as we bring the preliminary and then the final budget forward, that we'll talk a lot about. I always think it's really important to acknowledge, and sometimes I take this for granted because I work with it every day and I'm looking at the numbers, that the budget is never in stasis. There is constantly something changing in the budget. And one of my first mentors in this job, really look up to him, still keep in contact with him, said, you know, budgeting is much more of an art form than it is a science. And I always remember that. And so there are strategies for managing budgets, or excuse me, budget deficits. Certainly, I would never recommend that the board do anything that I didn't feel like we could address in terms of pushing the budget into a deficit. So I think we're in a really safe spot. I believe, I'm fairly certain I've given these numbers already from early estimates. And of course, we have a lot of budget process to go as we now take those numbers and push them into reality and start to flow them out. But early estimates are this would land somewhere in the $3 million range in terms of the deficit, which sounds like a lot of money. But when you take into consideration that the general fund is going to be $115-ish million, it's actually less than a 3% deficit. So there are a lot of ways to manage a deficit. I think obviously when we're talking with the finance committee, we're not only looking at that next year, but 3 and 5 and 7 and 10 years into the future on how things are changing, where we see different factors moving as we move into the future. And so I feel good about where we're at. I feel like we have a very good handle on our financial situation. We have other funds that are in very, very healthy conditions, meaning that the general fund would never have to assist another fund or any of those things. So I feel like we're in a really good position as we move forward, and that ultimately, again, that compensating and being able to recruit and retain high quality people is one of the most important things that we can do as a district. And so we have to continue to find ways to do that. And I think we're doing a good job of that. And the board is doing a good job of making that a priority.
Mr. Swan?
Thank you. I'm pretty much going to echo what Jamie had to say about the participation. The participation at times was hard as a board member, and I know that it was just really, sometimes it was like 8 o'clock and 1 o'clock, you know, and it was sometimes the content's dry. I would like to say shout out to Kelsey Parker. She did a really good job of getting through the language. Sometimes the language is a lot of the negotiation, and she did get us through that very well. Yeah. So hats off to you as well, Coy. The allotment piece was really wonderful. from what started in negotiations to what we're viewing tonight has pretty much been the same thing. We've talked about the same thing. We've, done the same things. And I think the pairs and the teachers really appreciated that, are in that group, was just knowing how much we had. You know what I mean? And that made things go very well.
Yeah.
I would like to say, thank you to Mr. Bradley. He's in the audience tonight, and I know he's a really good negotiator with the teachers group. So I really enjoy sitting across the desk. By the way, you do still look good, sir. So, I did want to say I appreciated the open, transparent conversation. There was a lot of that, there was where, is there anything else? Is there anything more?
Yeah.
Everyone going into negotiations, everybody knew we may be operating in a deficit, or we're going to operate in a deficit. And that was key. So I think it was really one of those things that, helped with negotiations. So thank you for that, Coy.
Yeah.
I know that having a deficit, sometimes that's tough to navigate, but I truly believe that you've got a lot of experience now since the first time I've met you, and then you've got a lot more education behind you. So I think that, that's kind of the reason why we just kind of, like I said, always let our professionals handle the situation, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
All right, anybody else? I think I just want to say for the community, that was a very, very good report and a lot of information, but I just, on a personal note, hope that the community appreciates the statement that, that this board, is making compensation a priority and doing whatever we can. And obviously, nobody would disagree with the fact that teachers don't deserve more, or in anybody in the district deserves more, but that community have an appreciation that we are going up over and above even our budget situation. So I just hope that sentiment kind of filters through the community, and there's an appreciation for that. So.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Thompson, your flashlight is in our.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, again, another excellent report. Any comments? All right, before we move on to my presentation, there was a question asked during open forum, and I've received an update from our in-house counsel. At this time, we have not received any certification paperwork. We or the state, and the reason why I said that, some states are filling out the certification for the whole state, and so districts are not being asked to individually fill out that report. And that report is not due until April 24th. So there's an update on the question during open forum. All right, let's see. This is my first time doing this, so we'll see how it goes. Getting there. All right, Bobby, I'll press the button. Okay, there it goes. All right. I attended the National School Board Association conference this year. Well, I went last year and this year. And so it was in Atlanta this year, and here are some of my observations. I think the important question for the community to know is why did I go and why it's important. I think it's a reminder that the job that we do is very important. When you read our emails, well, I don't know, when you read my emails, you will not get come to a conclusion that what we do is important, but it is very important. And so it's a reminder because you're around other board members, and that camaraderie of understanding that what you do is important was so helpful for me. You're surrounded by people who understand it's a thankless job. And we you know, just kind of pat each other on the back and hug and cry and just know that it's very difficult. You are reminded that you have value as a board member. When I thought about it, we have 12,000 students. If each student has one guardian, that's another 12,000, that's 24,000 people. You have staff and you have other community stakeholders. So the 7 of us make decisions that affect close to 30,000 people, if not, and that's conservative estimate. And so your serving in these roles is valuable. And again, sometimes over the course of the year, again, we're not reminded of that, but when you go to these conferences and you're around other school board members, you know, we give each other, we all have that common understanding. You cannot understand how to sit in this seat unless you've sat in it. And when you go to the conference, everybody there is sitting in those seats. And so there's a camaraderie and understanding of what's going on. The educational information you get from around the country, broaden perspective on districts around the country, and a few things that I've learned. It's a reminder that obviously some boards have 5, 7, and 9 members. Some districts, I found this interesting, some districts are so large that there's a county board of education. And the county board of education, then they would be technically our boss. And in those states where there are county board of educations, I found this fascinating too. The county is responsible for special ed schooling education. They're responsible for juvenile education, responsible for expulsion education and behavioral. And so if a district and a school cannot handle any one of those categories, it's state mandated that the Board of Education will have and maintain and build these schools for these issues. So that was pretty cool. I met with Dawn Marie Johnson. She is the board member from Sioux Falls District. And during our conversation, she reveals that they have a 5-member board, and they just voted to extend their board terms from 3 years to 4 years. And why is that important? Number one, I wouldn't have known that had I not met her and talked. And the reason why I said something to her, she had a South Dakota jacket on. And I was like, oh, are you from South Dakota? And one thing led to another. So she said they just instituted, the board just voted from that. And it was enlightening to me because I didn't know how we could do that. I thought we had to call the president, the White House, Congress, but it's really as simple as a board voting to do that. And again, why is that important? Because we've talked about how the frequency of our district's board turnover, it's not a recipe for stability. And I've talked to 2 previous superintendents who said that they were in the job for 6 years, and for every year they had a different board. And even a 1-member change, so even if we change one of the 7 of us, that makes a big difference in the dynamic and the direction. And so, it's an issue that we've talked about. It's the issue I think I'll bring forward to see if we can not again bump our gums and just talk about how bad it is when we're the ones that can do something about it. One of the things that was important to know as we get our new superintendent, that the average tenure of a superintendent is 3 to 5 years. In urban communities, it's 2 to 2.5 years. And then in rural communities, it's 5 to 6 years. So again, there's just that understanding that there's going to be turnover. I heard a comment from somebody in the community that, they're just going through superintendents. Well, I mean, if the average is 3 to 5 years, that means some districts, in fact, there was a district that they hired a superintendent, that superintendent lasted 8 months. So when you talk about averages of 3 years, there's gonna be some that's less than 3 and then some that's more. So again, and then networking with other board members from around the country is awesome. The sessions I attended were the superintendent search and transition. Obviously, we had already done the search part, so it was interesting getting information about transition. The general session that I attended was Melissa Stockwell. She is, she has one leg and she was in the Army and an IUD blew off her leg, but she's been in 3 Paralympics and 1 gold medal in Paralympics, and so she was inspiring. Her message was the power of choice. The importance of superintendent board communication, board superintendents, and the power of transformational leadership. This was an interesting session because it again talked about how boards affect the superintendent and the superintendent then affects the schools and all the way down to teachers. And so it again reminded me of how valuable and important this board is because that affects, it just trickles down through the whole district. Federal changes and impact on locals. I didn't get a whole lot of this except all the changes, especially as we talk about our OCR issue and those different changes. And it's still in flux. There are a few school districts that are suing the government. And so there's not a lot of finality to some of the things that we were worrying about. The last session that I attended was Ravi Hussing. He wrote a book called Pivot, which was very important to me because it's the concept that life brings challenges. And when those challenges come, you have to be flexible enough to pivot to the next thing. And then as it connected with me because as we get our new superintendent, then we're gonna have to pivot to changes and personalities and communication. And so all that was, again, very important to me. My takeaways: the importance of the board, the work of the board, over communicate was something that was talked about a lot. And I thought about that it may be important to hire when we have big news information that we hire outside communications and to help Bobby with what she's doing. One of the things that they talked about is surveys. And I want the community to know that when we send out a survey, and I know, surveys get on your nerve and sometimes we can do too much. But when we send out a survey, we're asking you, how do you feel about a particular situation? And so if we ask you how you feel about a situation and you don't respond, then that's like me asking my wife what she wants for dinner. And she doesn't respond, we get peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And, well, why do we have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? Well, I asked you, you didn't respond. So surveys, I just wanted to stress the community, when you get a survey, it's we value your input and we want your input. And the only way, because the 7 of us can't go to the whole community and knock on everybody's door and have a conversation, then we use the system of surveys. So please, when you get a survey, do the best that you can to fill those out so that we can know what your wishes are. Ms. Urban, this would be interesting to you. Ms. Johnson said they sent out a survey about phones. They received 12,000 response on their surveys, and the survey indicated that they will probably ban phones in school. So that's how important us knowing what you want is. So over communicate, engage the community, which we have our outreach committee. And one of the things that was stressed is maybe doing more than just having listening sessions, but if there's a civic group that wants a board member to come and talk to them, we open that. I even thought about doing the summer, having a dunk tank or something, and they could dunk me in the dunk, throw your baseball that you throw. And so just engaging stuff that we can put ourselves out there in the community. The power of social media, we've talked about that. Be a learning organization. And I think, again, that's one of the reasons why I go, because you learn. And the district expects everyone to have PD days. And so this is a way that the Board of Education can have a PD couple of days. System thinking, thinking of the district as a whole and not just my particular area, but it's kind of a concept for the board. Obviously, we have a 30,000-foot view and we see things different. And so looking at the district as a whole. Okay, be innovative and creative. We are creatures of habit, and sometimes we're comfortable doing the same thing the same way. And as we know, change is difficult, but it's so important for the board and the district to be innovative and creative. I thought this was interesting. Effective boards, effective and ineffective boards. Okay, effective boards have shared value, and one of the concepts that they talked about is the value, the shared value that all students can learn. That no matter what the difficulties or challenges each student has, when you have the value that this student can learn, it causes you to think better about the student, better, be more creative in ways. If I think this student can learn, so how can I break through whatever barrier to learning there is for that student? And so I thought that was awesome. Unified governance, the importance of the relationship between the board and the superintendent. Christine isn't here, but I know she's big on data monitoring. And so that's important for us to have facts to decisions that we make. Board bonding and bridging. Our interpersonal relationships are so important. Again, community engagement and provide conditions for success. And so if we're asking the district to do certain things that we think are successful, then we as a board must provide those conditions, whether it's money, whether it's whatever it is, to help the district be successful. Ineffective, boards that micromanage. And I think that's something that we have to work on and continue to work on. Personal agendas, disorderly meetings. I don't think we've had any of those. No chairs were flying or anything like that. So we're doing good in that area. Refer to external pressure. I think while obviously we have open forum and we want input, sometimes I think we have to be careful that that we don't succumb to special interest groups outside of making decisions that are best for the district and the students. Less reliance on the superintendent, interpersonal, how do I move the, okay, there it is. Interpersonal conflicts. This was a saying that I thought was powerful. Schools must not try to be everything for everyone, but it must have something for everyone. And I think that's something that Rapid City Area Schools can strive for. All right, any questions? And next year's, well, speaking of Sioux Falls, again, I don't know what their budget is, but they have five board members and 4 of them were at the conference. And so again, that spoke to me. So if you want to go next year, it's the 10th through the 12th, 2026, and it is in San Antonio, Texas. So if you're able to make room in your schedule for that, then I think it'd be great if we get a couple. They had superintendents there. I mean, anybody can come. Obviously, it's geared for board members. And you have a few superintendents and basically anybody can go, but it is geared for school board members. All right. So that is that. Any questions, comments?
Did they have the attorney one alongside or the legal conference alongside this year? Or no?
Yeah.
COSA, okay.
I don't know the dates of it, and so it's another branch. If you go to nsba.org, they'll tell you all the different, there's a lawyer one, and then there's a branch of urban districts. Yeah, so, and they have, they're kind of separate things. All right. Very good. No conflict of interest. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve Rapid City Area Schools policy, procedures, and exhibits.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Rapid City Area Schools policy, procedures, and exhibits. All in favor signify, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Approval of proposed agreements. I will entertain a motion. I forgot to make my little. The previous motion approved. Now I will entertain a motion for the approval of proposed agreements.
Before you do that, can I pull Echo, please?
Yes. Any other item that needs to be pulled? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of proposed agreements outside of Echo.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor of approving the proposed agreements, except for Echo, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, Echo, I will entertain a motion to approve the contracts and agreements teachers.
I'll motion.
Second.
Discussion.
I just need to pull this because my partner is a teacher, so I need to
Okay.
recuse myself.
All right. All right, all in favor? Okay,
Yeah, we
let's do a roll call vote.
Troy,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Donna. Yes. Michael,
Recuse.
Walt, and Katie.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0 and 1 abstain.
Very good. Okay. Approval of proposed, I will entertain a motion to approve the proposed consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, okay. It's too late now. All right, all in favor of approving the proposed consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay. Motion carries. Items for board agenda, board information. Okay, we have board information on the parent caregiver experience survey results by Dr. Strasser.
All right, I wanted to share a little bit of information if I can get this. Okay. So you were talking about surveys earlier, and we give 4 annual surveys from the district. We have the district services survey, and that is done typically in November. We have the employee experience survey, which we did late January this year. We have the parent caregiver survey, which we got the results. And the next survey is the student survey, which just finished, and I'll be sharing that information at an upcoming board meeting. But tonight I wanted to focus on the parent caregiver experience survey. So when you kind of look at this, I think it's good to look at the lens with all our surveys, in that we really seek alignment across our pillars. That's always kind of that foundational piece for us. And we want feedback on, and we want to connect it to those pillars. And this is a really good way to do it. The parent caregiver survey directly reflects our efforts to engage with families and listen to their feedback. Again, we want to see clear and consistent communication because that builds trust and supports our students and their success. So those are just some of the underlying things as we move into the survey results here. All right. Survey participation, as you can see, we were down a little bit in our overall number of participants. You can see the mean score increasing, and then it talks about the top box and the top 2 box. So those percentages are super important. So when you take the survey, it's a 1 to 5 rating for the 15 questions. And the top box are the number of the percentage of those scoring us at 5 on those questions. The top 2 box is the 4s and the 5s together. So I think when you look at this, you could see that more respondents feel positively about their school experience. We're moving up 5%. We're moving up 3% on the top 2 box.
Dr. Strasser,
Yes.
to make my point, how many surveys were sent out?
Oh, it's not how many, it's the time frame, and it's open to, we send it out to all parents, and it's open to the community. Anybody who has a link can take this survey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, see, so that is my point. So you asked 30,000 people what they want for dinner and only 1,200 response.
Yes. On table 2A, you could see that this is the Net Promoter Score, and there's 2 parts to it. One is the organization and the other is the immediate work area. So from an organization level, that's more thinking about the district as a whole. And then the immediate work area is more thinking in terms of the actual school that your child is connected to. So Net Promoter is really on that 1 to 5 scale. 1 to 3, we call the detractors. The 4s are the passive and the 5s are the promoters. So this score is reflective of the promoters minus the detractors. So sometimes that's not easy to really reconcile, but I think the biggest thing that you see is in that first table that our promoter scores went up 4.93. Our passives 3.35 and our detractors decreased 8.29. And that is exactly what you want to see because that reflects movement towards more positivity in responding to your questions. Likewise, on table 2B, you can see the changes from the promoter gains of 5.8 with the passive 1.07 and the detractor -6. So you can see the overall movement in from year over year. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we talked about as a leadership group is really how do you move detractors, those that are kind of in that 3 area to a passive, to a 4. So moving 3 to 4, I think, is one of the hardest challenges in getting in working with respondents. So, all right. The table 3 just takes a look at each question that respondents are asked to respond to, and as you can see, I think it confirms that we have positive movement all the way across the board, and that's really exciting as a district to be able to see those net gains. I want to point out question 12. That question, I am proud to say I have a child at this school, is a direct question on our community pillar. And when we looked at, and you'll see this when we do our end of year report, but when we set our goal for this year, the baseline was 3.96, the goal was 4.06, and we actually met our goal. And as we go through this year, it is really hard to meet our goals, moving off our baselines to what we want, where we want to be at the end of the year. But this is one area of success. So I'll point out, number 3, which says I regularly receive feedback from school staff on how well my child is learning. That was a 0.18 increase. That is the largest overall increase. But I think it's great to see that we have positive movement across the board here. A couple other quick comments. I think families are are showing through this that they're more likely to trust decisions and engage be engaged in what their child is doing. So I think that's super important. And what I think about some of the implications, obviously we have to keep being proactive in how we communicate with families and strengthening our tools. I think a very obvious one would be our website and utilizing ThrillShare as a communication device. Will that help us as a district and at the school level continue to be very transparent and proactive? I think we can continue to build on our progress by looking at data and using this because from here, our schools each get their own report, so they can see their results, and that's part of their work is taking these results, doing what we call the rollout process. So they work with their leadership teams. What is this information telling them? How do they get more concise feedback from parents then, so that they can turn it into actionable steps? So that's kind of the whole process, and we do that with every survey. It's a heavy lift for our building leaders because they're taking it on for 3 direct surveys, where as myself and our directors, we directly roll out based on the results from the district service survey that we did in November. So it takes a while to do these things, but it's great information, and we want to turn it into not just, oh, thanks for the survey. We want to turn it into actionable steps. And as we do that, taking those actionable steps, but doing so in alignment across all our pillars. And I think this parent caregiver survey really highlights the communications and the community pillars, maybe more than the others, but they're all linked. So that is the information coming from our parent caregiver survey. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Dr. Strasser, can you go back to table 3? And while question 3 was the highest at 0.1A, question 2 is right behind it at 17. I believe schools' rules are enforced consistently at this school, and I just am wondering, is that due to some of the work that we've been doing and some of the things that the changes that we've made? I'd like to believe so. I mean, I think you can correlate that. So
I think that's an accurate statement. I think it's also really hard to draw direct correlations. I think it's probably a combination of being very intentional around how we work through and respond to behaviors. I think it has to do with how we establish policies. So those are important steps, and we've been much more communicative across the board to all our stakeholders. So I do think that matters, and I think how leaders approach their buildings and communicating with kids and upholding our school expectations and rules does matter. So I think you're seeing, I would call that a result here as well.
all right, thank you. Mr. Berkeley.
Yeah, can you scroll down to the percentage table? Mostly just so that it's on the other way. Way at the bottom, there's that same table, but in percentages.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good. Just mostly just so it's on the Zoom for people watching it. But I also like that table because it does, particularly on that question 3, show what feels like a bigger jump. That's, can get into all the data manipulation there, but almost 10% feels a lot cooler than 0.1 to me. But the other question I had is, and I'm not asking to like name names, but is this consistent school to school, or are we seeing schools with big jumps and schools with dips that?
It varies. Yes.
Perfect.
There's plenty of variability. Yes.
So then I'm assuming that we're talking to those schools that had good scores, sending them to those schools that had not so good scores.
Yeah, that's,
Having them talk.
yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
And thanks for bringing this up because Table 4, keep in mind, is top box changes. So that's those who highlighted as a 5. So that's an important difference on this, on Table 4 versus Table 3. Table 3 was that overall mean score. So, but it does, to your point, Mr. Berkland, highlight the jump for number 3 in particular. Just really good score.
Okay. All right, seeing no more questions. Thank you very much, Dr. Strasser. Appreciate that report. Children's Home Society update. Director Grower? Is that how you pronounce it?
Grower.
Grower.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome. Well, good evening, members of the school board, and thank you for having me come here this evening to talk a little bit about provide an update about the relationship between Children's Home Society and the Rapid City area schools currently taking place at the Lincoln Building. My name is Mike Grower. I am the Director of School Programming for Children's Home Society. So all right, we're good. So in my role, I oversee all school programming within our organization, which covers kindergarten through 8th grade at sites in Sioux Falls, Black Hills Children's Home outside of Rockerville, and now today inside Rapid City. The partnership between CHS and RCAS aims to provide K-3 students with specialized educational programming. Our program serves as an immediate extension of services for Rapid City students who need additional support, and it serves as the foundation toward a developing future potential, I think very likely, alternative day school at our CHS campus in relocating into Rapid City. Our goal at the Lincoln Building is to support up to 24 students in this initial phase, offering an alternative classroom environment with a 1-to-4 staff to student ratio and specialized support to help students thrive socially, emotionally, and academically. I wanted to provide an update about student enrollment. I feel we are making significant progress in a very short period of time. On March 31, we welcomed our first 4 students from grades 2 and 3 to the Lincoln Building. This was a critical first step in building momentum for the program overall. On April 7th, an additional 7 students, mostly K-1, but a few additional 2nd and 3rd graders, joined our classrooms, bringing our total and current enrollment to 11 students. We are expecting more students to enroll throughout the month of April, targeting a total student count of potentially 15 students by the end of next week. So these initial steps are very promising and show that our efforts are meeting needs of students who are currently requiring an alternative learning environment. CHS has made strong progress in building the team necessary to support our collective students. To date, and since the onset of our partnership in January, we have been fortunate enough, a lot of conversations tonight about attaining and retaining teachers. We have been fortunate enough to hire 2 classroom teachers and 3 teacher assistants, or what you would equate to paraprofessional positions. And these individuals are working with the children on a daily basis. We are also fortunate enough to share staff between our Black Hills Children's Home campus and the Lincoln Building. These individuals include art, music, which doubles in our organization as music therapy, and physical education teachers, and a behavior specialist. Additionally, each student at the Lincoln Building has been partnered with a therapist from CHS's outpatient therapy clinic on Mount Rushmore Road for individual, family, and group therapy. These team members, in collaboration with the school district members that we have had the privilege to work with, are contributing to the programs and the students' successes. Moving forward, the short-term goal is to maintain momentum by supporting students as enrollments increase and ensure that we're meeting social, emotional, and academic needs through individualized instruction, behavioral support, and a structured environment where students can thrive. Overall, I'm pleased to report that the program is progressing well, and we are excited about the future growth of the Lincoln Building and the partnership between CHS and RCAS. The successes that we are seeing in this early stage is testament to the hard work of everyone involved. And I don't know how frequently we shout out employees at a board meeting, but I have said this to individuals, but I cannot thank the staff members of your school district enough for contributing and participating in this process and a true collaborative effort to meet the needs of these kids. So I want to thank the board for your ongoing support of this initiative, and I look forward to providing future updates as we continue to work together.
Thank you, Mr. Gore, for that presentation. Mrs. Clapham.
I'm super, super excited about this. Good to see you again. It's been about a month show. I was just wondering, who is the driver and how do we, so I completely understand why we're doing K3, but then who drives the transition when we get to 4? And what does that look like as far as?
Yeah, that's a very good question. When we arrived at the decision to approach K3, like you said, it's a logical decision. And at the same time, we're starting with a 3rd grader potentially in April. And we are year round, so we do have some time. We have April, May, June, July, but that 3rd grader might become a 4th grader, will likely become a 4th grader. And so at that point, we need to make a decision related to that child. Perhaps they stay at the Lincoln Building and continue working with the group of kids that they're working with right now. So in essence, we are then working with a 4th grader, but we aren't referring a new 4th grader at that time unless we shift our grade level approach. But driving the transitions is a collaborative effort. We maintain close connection with the building administration and team members that have previously been working with the child. And collaboratively, we meet on a regular basis. We establish a 30-day meeting to provide an update to all stakeholders of the child and their family. And we meet quarterly, approximately every 90 days after that. So frequent communication, consistent collaboration, and just making decisions in the best interest of the kids.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Urban.
Thank you for the presentation, and I'm a little distracted, so if you said this, I forget. I'm sorry. How are the kids referred and how long do they stay once they're there? That's just based on when they're ready to go back?
Yeah, so the first question is how are kids referred? So it's been an education process. This is a new endeavor in the Rapid City area. Our experiences with a day school model in Sioux Falls is really what's driving our experience with the program. For us, it's been a partnership with the elementary building principals, providing education to them. We've had multiple remote calls and conversations regarding what does our program entail? What type of student are we targeting? Who do we work best with? And then those principals really rely on their relationships with families to drive those referrals to us for either further understanding or just get everybody on the same page. The second question was the length of participation in the program. It really truly varies. Again, I can cite experiences with our day school program in Sioux Falls and say it's approximately 18 months of time. That also is impacted by how young the child was when they came to us. I could probably make a case for the younger they are when they enter, the faster they progress back to their public school setting. Another influencing factor, I mentioned the therapy components that are part of what we do. Every child is going to participate in the individual therapy. The level of participation from the family and the family therapy component, that collective effort will also drive the return to the public school setting, which we make very clear with all the families. That's our goal. We love to work with the kids when they're with us. We also love to see them successful back to where they were referred from.
Dr. Strasser.
I was going to reinforce the last comment Mr. Grower made was we want to support students in the right setting for the right amount of time with the ultimate goal of transitioning back to the least restrictive and at that time, hopefully the best place for every student. So, but this is definitely needed and very good support for a number of our students.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions? Well, thank you very much. We're
Thank you.
all excited about the program and the work that and thank you for all the work
Yeah.
that you're.
Thank you
doing
very
in the
much.
program. All right. Committee reports. Mrs. Urban.
So our finance. I think Coy covered most of it in his presentation. I would just like to say that I thought the negotiations process was pretty pleasant. I was nervous walking into it and I thought everyone was great to work with and so super smooth, and I'm grateful for the outcome. The only other thing we really talked about at finance was that our capital outlay revenue projections are actually higher than expected. So that's good news. And that's just based on valuations, right, Coy? Yeah. And that fund is in a really good position. We have a very nice reserve fund that is going to support whatever projects we do with facilities in the coming months and years. And then facilities, there's a current focus on the master plan to narrow in on the numbers for cost on the recommendations, just to make sure that if we are doing the project that we have a good idea of what it costs so that we can potentially put a bond forward and actually know what those things will cost. So they're really looking at, co-op is really trying to narrow some of those numbers down and get some harder costs on the projects that they have recommended. One of the things they talked about with that, I guess that I could say is they gave the example of North Middle School where they said, okay, we could do the lights project, but then if you're already doing the lights, then maybe you should do this. It's like that if you give a mouse a cookie. So if you start some of these projects, where does it kind of end? And so I think that's really one of the things that we're gonna have to grapple with is what do we do and what do we not do? And all of that, of course, will be based on cost. We discussed a timeline moving forward, so we're excited to share that facilities plan with our community. I believe that's May 8th. At Central, correct, Bobby? 6:30 on May 8th. So we'll promote that, but we're excited for the community to hear what the priorities are. And then from there, the board will have further discussions about how to carry out the priorities in that plan. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Mrs. Urban? All right, Mr. Berkeley.
Thank you. Katie and I just had Rapid City Public School Foundation, and the big thing there is the Evening of Excellence is coming up next week, and you are all invited. It is open to the public as well. Shout out to Mr. Bradley again. He's one of the teachers of distinction for that evening. That is on April 24th. At 5 p.m., the kind of open house part starts where you can mingle around with the seniors. They're all going to have a little table set up with, I'm sure, their senior photos and all their activities that they're in, which for these kids is 6 million of them. And then the actual program will start at 6:30.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Berkeley? All right, Mrs. Clapham.
Very brief for me. I just attended parent council, and to be perfectly honest, and Dr. Strasser can vouch, I was like 5 or 6 minutes late and they were already through reports. But I think just because spring break busy week, we only had a few schools represented this time. But one of the main things came up. They were pleased to find out about the study session about facilities and sharing that out. And an interesting point of discussion came up with activities and how they're excited about the app and the website, but that right now we have about 7,652 ways that activities in particular are. It's like the Remind app and this app and that one and this, and then parents are just like, holy cow, I can't keep up. And so we know obviously that it will take time, but it very much came out as a desire. Like the more we can streamline for these poor families who are trying to, if you've got a kid in every level and there's all these outlets. And so that was kind of an overlying theme of like, however we can streamline communication, that they would just absolutely love that. And we, said, obviously it'll take time, but that is feedback we're hearing, and I can, as a parent, completely relate to that. So, but yeah, it's a good group, small group, but and a pretty efficient meeting.
Any questions for Mrs. Clapham? All right, other. Mrs. Clapham.
I just wanted to say thanks to Ms. Stephenson and Ms. Urban and Mr. Berkland for volunteering at post prom. It's a late night and a long night, but I know I had a lot of fun and just appreciated board members being out there, and to our high schools for providing a wonderful, safe, enjoyable environment for those kids. And they really had a lot of fun, and there were a lot of really cool prizes that I wish I could have won, but just thank you to our board members for giving up that extra time even to support our students in our schools.
All right, any other? I would like to give a shout out to Mrs. Clapham, who was a co-presenter of the webinar for the State School Board Association, and it was entitled Health and Wellness for students and teachers. And so we got a lot of information. I think she did a wonderful job. And talking about teacher retention, it was interesting to still see that the two biggest obstacles to teachers' retention is salaries and behavior. And so again, while it's not comforting, it is understandable that we're not an outlier. It is statewide. That those are the two biggest issues in our trying to retain teachers. I think we had a commitment to do more things to promote health and wellness and in our district, and so we'll look forward to having those things. So I think we should give our fellow board member a hand. It's awesome. All right. Anything else? Nothing else. Somebody thought I would jinx getting out early, and I didn't. All right, at this time, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session SDCL 1-25-2.1.
So moved.
It has been moved and seconded to go into executive session 2.1. Which is dealing with personnel. So that is the only discussion that will be involved on tonight. All in favor of going into executive session signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any no, please say no. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you.